We continue the shir in Sichos HaRan, Rabbi Arizal sayings, if Kuflamet Tes, paragraph 139. Remember, these present paragraphs refer to chapters in Likutei Moharan, Rabbi Arizal's main sefer. This next one refers to the chapter 56 in the second chelik, second division of Likutei Moharan Tanina. There, the Rabbi Arizal speaks about the fact that the heart of a Jew is considered a mishkan. It is considered a holy temple, which is intended to house the Spirit of Hashem. Within every Jew, of course, Hashem is everywhere. But still there are special places where there is a greater concentration of the Kedusha of the Spirit of Hashem. A person is supposed to prepare his home, prepare a place fit for the king, for the queen, the Shekhinah, which means he has to prepare by purifying his heart, that in his heart there can rest the Shekhinah, the Spirit of Hashem. Now, since the heart of a person, which is the main part of the person, is the Spirit of Hashem, therefore we cannot say about this person, that he has no place to stay, or he has no place that is comfortable for him. Because this person needs no place. He doesn't require a house, he doesn't require a business, he doesn't require a city, he requires nothing. He is spaceless. Why? Because since Hashem is within him, then he is above the concept of space. Now understand this. Space is something which has confines. Area consists of a certain amount of area. For example, if you have anything which is 5 meters long by 50 centimeters wide, or the metric system, remember, and then you have something in turn which is, let's say, 1 yard long by 10 inches wide, that's less than what we said before. You cannot place item A into space B because something which is larger than the space allotted for it cannot be compressed into that space. Unless, of course, you squeeze it in, you confine it, you shorten the length and width of the item. But the length and width as is cannot be put into an area smaller than itself. That's impossible. That's the laws of space. But these laws of space do not apply to Hashem because Hashem created space. Hashem is above the rule of space. Space is governed by Hashem and not Hashem by space. Which means, in other words, Hashem is Mekaimei Shel Olam. Not that the world is the place of Hashem, but Hashem is the place for the world. We find too the word Mokim, place. Hashem's name is Mokim. When you square the letters of Hashem's name, Yud, K, Vav, K, the Tikuney Zohar says Yud 10, K 5, Vav 6, K 5. 10 squared is 100, 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36, 5 squared is 25. Squared by itself, the name of Hashem total is 186. The gematria of the word Mokim, place, 186. Zohar shows that Hashem is the place for everything, not that Hashem needs space or place. So therefore, since a person now becomes the area, the home of Hashem, this person now himself is above the rule of space. So there's no shortage as far as he's concerned. This is what the Menachem says in this Torah. Here in the Syrian Jewish, the sayings, the Nosson shows the origin of this statement. What brought about to this statement by Rabbi Nachman was that one time a man came to Rabbi Nachman. They had offered him a shidduch. A shidduch means a match. A bride marry this bride, but on condition that he live in the city, the place of his in-laws. That's a tremendous sacrifice. And this man said, there's no place there for me. I have no place there. Then the Arizal came out with this statement that he said, if your heart is pure, if your heart contains Hashem, then there's no question about place for you. Every place is good because you're above the concept of space or place. This was the origin of the statement. Of course, refers to every Jew. A person who really has Hashem within him, to put this in a very simple form, one feels the kedusha of heavenliness, then this whole world is meaningless to him. Doesn't matter if he has more room or less room, a better home or a more modern home, or if he has more wealth or less wealth, it's all nothing. He lives a life of heavenliness, of purity, so all this is meaningless. He can look over all the entire world, look at it from above and see that it's all worthless. This is what's meant by it, because he has Hashem within him, that he's above all these mundane items. Of course, that's a tremendous sichiyah, but it takes that real purity of heart, to make the heart a haven, a mishkan for Hashem. The next paragraph, Arizal refers to the Tikuney Zohar Tanina, second division, Tikuney Zohar, chapter 86. There, Arizal says that through emunah is a favorite topic because it's the most important item that exists, the basis for everything. If a person has faith, he is alive. If he has faith, he will always live. A person without faith is a walking corpse. He cannot be expected to even enjoy life itself. Without faith, then life is meaningless. So, what is meant by faith then? Faith means very simple, pure emunah in Hashem. And with this simple faith, it's very easy to serve Hashem. There are some people under the impression that in order to serve Hashem, you must deprive yourself of everything. You're not supposed to eat, you're supposed to fast, you're supposed to accept different types of suffering. Real faith means where you sacrifice yourself, you make every type of physical sacrifice. There are some who took upon themselves, they inflicted self-torture, rolling in snow, bathing in ice, and so forth. All these types of services were services to Hashem, but they were only because there was something lacking in faith, in true faith. The Jew who has pure, simple faith, without being a genius, without being a sage, a great scholar, without being an extremist, by simple, pure faith, the simplest Jew in the world could serve Hashem without going to any extremes whatsoever. So, meaning therefore that there's no extreme even from heaven. Sometimes a person doesn't serve Hashem right, so from heaven they send upon this person different types of yisurim, suffering. They send him yisurim where he has a shortage of money, his livelihood, his business goes bad, or he becomes ill, he contracts diseases, or he has suffering from raising his children, chas v'sholem, different types of suffering that exist. The world is filled with it. Or sometimes it isn't even necessary to test this person with his life, where he's expected to give his life for the sake of his religion, to prove himself. All this, again, is in a case where a person's faith is lacking, it is imperfect. But if a Jew has faith, simple faith, again, what is faith? Faith means the most simple form without studying deeply, without any trace of philosophizing. Simply, I believe in Hashem, and I believe implicitly that Hashem's word is the truth. Anything contrary to the word of Hashem is false. This is a simple faith. So the simplest person in the world can have that. That's why Arizal said, if you want to know what true faith is, don't go to the great scholars because you will never see real faith there. Go to the simple people, go to the women whose hearts are purer than men in this respect. Their faith is unquestioning. They don't ask why and wherefore. Learn from them the true meaning of faith. This implicit kind of faith, as we explained time and again, so in one word, it is called blind faith. Blind faith means where people might sneer at a person and say, prove it. What do you know about it? The answer is blind faith. I believe, without question, though I don't understand, though I don't see it, I believe in Hashem. I believe in Hashem's greatness. Hashem created the world. Hashem conducts the world. This is it. Call me a fool. I'm willing to be called a fool and to retain my faith solidly. This kind of faith obviates the necessity of any kind of suffering. A person like that will not have to go through suffering or tests. He will not have to give up his life for the sake of his religion, because he has proven himself with this simple, pure faith. These are the words of the Arizal in the HaRan. Sichos the Nosson writes that when he heard these words from the Arizal, he was shocked in a sense, because he felt every word that Arizal said was directed at him, the way it should be. The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, Aseh l'chorav. Aseh l'chorav means acquire for yourself a Rebbe, which means that the best possible student is he, but when he hears a lesson, a shiur, a lecture, words of Torah from any rabbi speaking, so he feels it's directed at himself. This is meant for himself, the shoe fits, and he's supposed to correct himself for any shortcoming. Whatever the rabbi says in his talk, he is supposed to find himself as in need of those words, in need of that correction. R Nosson felt Arizal was speaking about faith, emunah, so he said, he looked hurt. Am I that short in emunah? Do I really lack faith in Hashem? So Arizal replied, he said to R Nosson, yes, you don't lack faith in Hashem. You have faith in Hashem. You have emunah in the Torah. You have emunah in the tzadikim. You have emunah in your Rebbe. But you do lack faith in yourself. You don't have enough self-confidence, enough self-faith. You think too little of yourself. There's a difference between humbleness, true anivus, and a person who shortchanges himself. A person who thinks too little of himself, which can do damage. Arizal said you're supposed to have faith in Hashem and tie it in. Have faith that Hashem is so great that even you consider yourself so low, so infinitely small before Hashem, even you too are precious in the eyes of Hashem. Your neshama, your soul too, is a part of the Shekhinah, and therefore you are precious in the eyes of Hashem. Have confidence in yourself and feel better, feel happier about yourself. Feel a sense of accomplishment. I am a part of the Shekhinah, and Hashem regards me as a part of himself. That should bring you simcha, because if you haven't got that, a person can be brought down to chas v'shalom to a depressed state of mind. This is what you must have, and this is the supplement to true faith. R Nosson says, Likutei Halachos, that, as we said, faith means faith in Hashem is one thing, but it is not complete until a person has faith in the tzadikim. A person who has faith in Hashem and not in the tzadik, that faith is worthless. The emunah is worthless. There must be both. As we will read this coming Shabbos, the story of Kriyas Yamsuf, there we have the posek Vayamina b'Hashem of Moshe Avdei. The Jews believed in Hashem and Moshe Rabbeinu. One emunah for both. One faith covers both. If you have half, it is nothing. This we find, Moshe Feinstein writes, in the case of Adam Harishon. When Adam was created, of course he was bound by the rules of faith too. He had to have faith in Hashem. Was he exempt from the rule of faith in its tzadik? No Jew could be exempt from that. So what was Adam Harishon's rule as far as faith in its tzadik goes? This is what the Arizal directed his words at now. There was a time you must have faith in yourself. Adam Harishon was forced, he was bound to have emunah in himself because he was a tzadik emes. With all the humbleness, with all the anivus, he had to believe that he was a tzadik emes, and he had to have emunah in himself, self-confidence and self-faith. And of course, this means that there is one person in the world, the tzadik emes, who has this very delicate task of faith. He's got to have emunah in the tzadik emes, and not to be misled, not to say he is that humble that there's a different person who's a tzadik emes, because then it's a false faith. He has to have the emunah in himself as a tzadik emes. And this, of course, Arizal writes too about anivus. That the greatest degree of anivus is where a person who is the most humble, the most modest person in the world, should recognize himself as such. Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the most modest person in existence, was able to write the words in the Torah, V'ha'ish Moshe Onam Miyad. He wrote about himself that Moshe Rabbeinu is the most humble person in the entire world. He wrote that statement without feeling any conceit and being able to say about himself the statement. Because he had to have this same degree of emunah in the tzadik emes in himself. Without that, there will be a trace of emunah lacking, chas v'shalom, and that was impossible. He was able to write that, have the emunah himself, and still remain the most humble person in the world. The next paragraph, we come to Teda and Likutei Moharan, Tanina, Tzadik Beis, chapter 92, which is classified as the greatest revelation of all time since creation. In this Teda, Arizal reveals about the Tikkun HaKloli. Tikkun HaKloli means the perfection, the correction of that which is considered the worst sin in existence, the sin, chas v'shalom, of zera, of atola, wasting zera, the magnitude of that sin, where it is listed as the severest sin out, and one where there are some who maintain there is no possible teshuva for it even. Arizal reveals the Tikkun HaKloli, the means of correcting and erasing the sin completely. Tikkun HaKloli consists of the revelation of certain 10 chapters of Tehillim. Revealing these 10 chapters was done by Rabbi Arizal after generations of search for it by all tzaddikim from creation, the moment of creation on. In other words, the first one to seek this special formula was Adam Harishon, the first tzaddik who lived. Afterwards, every generation, in each generation, tzaddikim kept on searching, seeking this precious, this invaluable information, which 10 chapters are the ones that, when said, will correct completely this sin. And no one succeeded until Rabbi Arizal was zecher, as he said that Hashem granted him the chesed, the kindness, that he was the one to be able to discover it, to reveal it to the world. Now, let's first understand what is the meaning of 10. Why 10 chapters? And what is special about these 10 chapters of Tehillim? Today, Baruch Hashem, we have the secret formula. We have it in print. We have the exact chapters of Tehillim which are to be said, the Tikkun HaKloli. But what is special about these 10 chapters? What were they looking for? What were they seeking? These tzaddikim all knew the Sefer Tehillim, 150 chapters in Sefer Tehillim. They all knew the Gemara which states clearly that the Sefer Tehillim is based upon the 10 types of chapters, these 10 types which Arizal revealed. They knew about this. The question was only to find which ones. But what about this? What is special about these 10 types of chapters? And as we said, the greatest revelation is the Tikuney Zohar. The greatest revelation by Rabbi Nachman of all his writings is the Sefer Sipurei Mesios, the Sefer dealing with stories. And of these stories, the last of these stories, called the Zion Bettlers, the 7 beggars, is the holiest, most sacred story of all, is in itself a revelation that is so great. Arizal said the story is so high in holiness that Mashiach will come to reveal, to explain, to interpret this story itself. The story itself is a fascinating story, but it contains so many deep secrets that are far beyond our conception, even with the interpretations that we have. The Mashiach will be the one to reveal the innermost secrets of this story. That story, briefly, deals with 7 beggars. The word beggar, of course, is not the right translation. The Yiddish word is bettler, which means 2 things. It means a beggar, only in this sense, a beggar, one who begs before Hashem, meaning one who davens with the utmost kavanah. He pleads before Hashem for his cause. The story of these 7 beggars, who each possessed a deformity of some kind of a physical shortcoming. One was blind, one was deaf, one was dumb, one was hunchback, and so on, lack of hands, feet, and so on. These 7 beggars, bettlers, 7 tzaddikim, all were proven in this story to be perfect physically. It was just an illusion. Actually, what they really were tzaddikim who kept these organs so pure that they did not even reveal this to the physical world. The blind beggar, for example, never used his eyes to see anything in this physical world. His eyes were kept pure and holy for the sake of Kedusha only. The deaf beggar never used his ears to listen, to hear any Lashon Hara, anything bad, used it only for Kedusha, and so on. The story itself is fascinating because each one proves his point, proves the miracle powers of these special organs. The climax of the story, of course, the story is an unfinished story. The story tells only about 6 of the 7 beggars. The 7th one, the Arizal said, will be saved. When Mashiach comes, we'll have the story of the 7th beggar completed. So the 6th one is the climax, which reaches a crescendo, because this 6th beggar, whose deformity was in his hands, proved that his hands were superior to anyone alive. And his proof was, he told this story, that one day there were very great people, an assemblage, all, which means, of course, great tzaddikim, very holy tzaddikim, who were discussing the powers of the hands. In this discussion, the first one said that his hands are so powerful, so great, and have such a speed of motion that he could release an arrow and withdraw the arrow, bring the arrow back, retrieve it after it has been released. So fast is the movement of his hands. Now this 6th bettler, we'll call him bettler rather than beggar, 6th tzaddik, asked this wise man, this tzaddik, what kind of an arrow can you retrieve? And because there are 10 kinds of arrows. Now, of course, that means there is only one arrow. 10 kinds means that in warfare, they smear the tip of the arrow with a certain type of poison. There are 10 kinds of poisons that are used in warfare, and that it takes a power to retrieve, to draw back any of these arrows. The tzadik said, I can retrieve one of these 10 arrows. And this sixth bettler said, you're a great tzadik. You can retrieve one of these 10 arrows after it has been released from the bow, but you do not have the power to cure the princess. The princess. And so this tzaddik bowed out. Second one said, I have the power that whatever I take, by taking with my hands, in essence I am really giving. It looks like I am taking, but actually I am giving. This sixth bettler said to him, this means, of course, that you are performing the mitzvah of tzedakah. Because when tzedakah is given, it's really taking. Hashem says, take to me tzedakah. Not give me, but take. Which means that by giving, you're taking. So the person who gives tzedakah is really taking. So therefore, he said, what kind of tzedakah do you do? What kind did you master? There are 10 types of tzedakah, and these 10 types of tzedakah are called 10 different walls. 10 walls, 10 barriers, which are overcome by giving tzedakah. This tzaddik said, I have mastered one, meiser. Meiser means 1/10. The sixth bettler said to him, in that case, you cannot cure the princess. The princess, we'll get to the story of the princess soon. You cannot cure her because you've got to go through the 10 different barriers to get to her. You've mastered only one of these chaimes, one of these walls of barriers, therefore you'll have to bow out. Third one said that I have wisdom in my hands. I can place my hands upon a person, that's called giving smicha, and I can fill that person with wisdom. This sixth bettler asked him, what kind of wisdom do you know? What kind do you have? Which have you mastered? There are 10 kinds of wisdom. The Gemara says, Asora kaven chochma, 10 measures of wisdom were given to the world. So the tzaddik said, I have mastered one of the 10. The sixth bettler said to him, in that case then, you cannot cure the princess because these wisdoms refer to the knowledge of the pulse. All sickness can be diagnosed by feeling the pulse. There are 10 different kinds of pulse, and if you know only one, you cannot diagnose the illness of the princess. Therefore, you too must bow out. Fourth one said, power in my hands is I can put my hands up and actually stop a wind from blowing. The sixth bettler asked him, what kind of wind? There are 10 kinds of winds. And his answer was, I can stop only one wind. The sixth bettler said, in that case, you cannot cure a princess because these winds, there are wind instruments, musical instruments that work by the amount of air that goes through it. Wind. To control this music, you have to have the knowledge of the 10 different types of winds. So these wise men asked this sixth bettler, what's your power? What is the power in your hands? He replied, the power in my hands is all that you are lacking. I have what you have, plus the other 9/10 of each one of you. Therefore, only I can cure the princess. The story of the princess, he says, relating the story, he said that one time there was a king, an evil king, who saw a princess, decided to take her to himself. She would not come willingly, of course. He went and he kidnapped her, took her to his private place, and there he kept her captive. As time went by, she was a princess of great beauty. He had a strong desire for her, but one time he had a dream. In his dream, he dreamt that she came towards him to kill him. And he felt this dream was too lifelike to be ignored. So he began to worry about her. In worrying about her, he began to form a dislike to her rather than a strong liking he had. One day she felt this dislike of his. She realized the impending danger, and she decided to flee. When she fled, the king said she is dangerous because if she gets away, she'll come back and kill me to fulfill that dream. He ordered his soldiers to pursue her and to kill her. A distance from there was a special type of fortress, a fortress that was the most magnificent marvel in the world, a fortress made of water. It was called a fortress of water. How a fortress of water can remain, of course, is a mystery. To get to this fortress, there were 10 barriers, 10 walls too. These 10 walls were also made of water. To go through these 10 walls of water into this fortress would seem impossible because a person would naturally drown. It's made of water. This princess, fleeing from these soldiers, ran towards this fortress of water, and as she got close to it, the soldiers began to shoot at her with their arrows. 10 different kinds of arrows. Each one of these struck her vitally, and she ran wounded through these 10 barriers of water, and went through, arrived at the fortress itself, into the fortress without drowning, and there fell into a faint, a deadly faint. The king saw that she had fled, she had gone through safely. He pursued further with his army, together with his army, through these barriers, and of course as he went through, he and his entire army were drowned. This is the story of a princess who lay there, seemingly mortally wounded. In order to cure this princess, it requires the knowledge of the 10 different types of poisons, to remove these 10 arrows of poison, to cure her. So it requires all the knowledge that was mentioned before. Who is this princess? Who is this evil king? This is the secret story that Arizal told. Rav Nosson, in interpreting the story, said that I will give you a superficial explanation, a superficial interpretation, a true one, of course, but there is much more depth behind this. All of the secrets of Kabbalah are included in this story. Because Nosson says here, Rabbi Nachman put together, compiled all the writings of the Arizal and the Zohar Kodesh into this one story. We have, note these 4 items. The 4 items, as we said, are the 10 arrows, the 10 walls, the 10 different pulses, and 10 wisdoms, referring to pulses, and the 10 kinds of winds, or 10 kinds of musical notes. These 4 items correspond to the 4 different worlds. Olam ha'asiyah, the lowest world, our world, which corresponds to also the 4 types of Torah, the 4 parts of the Torah. 4 parts of the Torah are the letters, the crowns over the letters, the nekuda is the vowels, and the tamim, the musical notes. Olam ha'asiyah, the lowest world, corresponds to the letters, which also correspond to the 4 different combinations of Hashem's name, of, Sod, Mo, Bon. Bon, the lowest of the 4 combinations, is this world, Olam ha'asiyah, the letters of the Torah, and which also, again, correspond to the 4 elements. 4 elements are air, fire, water, and earth. Earth being the lowest form of these 4 elements, that refers to this world. So we come now to this corresponding statement of 4s. In all cases, note, there were 10 arrows, 10 walls, 10 wisdoms, 10 kinds of song, because in every one of these 4 worlds you have the 10 spheres, all 10s, and divided up into these 4 different divisions. So very clearly put then, we have basically, first is this world, Olam HaAsiyah, this material world, corresponding to the lowest of the 4 forms of the Torah, the letters of the Torah, corresponding to the name of Hashem born, corresponding to earth, the lowest form of creation, corresponding to, in this story, the arrows. The arrows with the poison, that's the lowest form. Second, the next world, the Yitzhira, that's the heavenly world of angels. This corresponds to the tagim, the crowns on the letters of the Torah, corresponding to the name of Hashem, the Shem Mo, corresponding to the second part of creation, which is water. This referred to the walls, the 10 walls made of water, and these referred to the mitzvah of tzedakah. In the story, the Chacham who said giving tzedakah has the power of going through these 10 walls if he has that mitzvah perfected in all its 10 forms, all 10 spheres. Third, next to the top, we have the Olam HaBriyah, the world of the throne, which corresponds to the Nekudas, the vowels, which is the Shem Sog, which refers to the pulses. Pulses, as the Tikuney Zohar says, what is the pulse of a person? These sounds. We could call it like a Morse code. Listen to a pulse, you feel the sounds of dots and dashes. All the vowels we have, the Nekudas, there are 10 Nekudas, 9 basically, but 10 actually. These 10 Nekudas are all in the forms of dots and dashes. Every one, the comets, for instance, is like a posek, a line, and a dot under it. Posek is a dash. The sego is 3 dots. Seder is 2. Chirik is 1. The lupum is a straight line, a dash down, vertical, plus a dot, and so on. So these are all 10 different types of nekudas, and these nekudas correspond to the Shem Sog, which is Olam HaBriyah, which is the pulse, the sounds of the pulse make up these nekudas. A person who knows how to diagnose a pulses correctly can tell the illness through the nekudas, to know what the person is missing spiritually through the sounds of these pulses. The highest one, that was Bina, the highest is Chachma, is the Olam HaAtzilus, which is the Shemayim Beis, Chachma, which corresponds to the Tamim, the musical notes in the Torah, which is the musical notes, the Negina, which is the Tikkun HaKlali. This is the cures. One who knows these 10 notes, these 10 types of Negina, 10 types of Simcha, this is the Tikkun HaKlali with which one can cure. Can cure what? Can cure whom? The princess. This princess, again, Rosenfeld says, refers to 2 cases. It refers to an individual, and it refers to a collective item. Princess itself is the Shekhinah, Shekhinah Begalusa. Every time there are sins committed, then the Shekhinah is the one that suffers. We find in this week's story, when we read the story of the division of the waters of the Red Sea, we start with the story of Parai, the evil king, pursuing the Jews till they got to Yam Suf, to the Red Sea. Then, when they were about to go into the water, you read the posek where it says that Parai shot the arrows at the Jews. As the Gemara says, what stopped these arrows? The Shekhinah placed itself between Pare's armies and the Jews, and the Shekhinah accepted, absorbed these arrows. The worst kind of tumah, Mitzrayim was filled with the worst kind of tumah, 50 degrees of tumah, which means in all 10 spheres, these poisonous arrows struck, Kaviyachal struck the Shekhinah, and the Shekhinah requires cure. What cures the Shekhinah? The mitzvahs that the Jews do, the tefillah of the tzadik emes, is one that brings the Shekhinah out of Golus. Until then, the Shekhinah now is in Golus. We have to retrieve and bring back the Shekhinah. Shekhinah is in that watery fortress, the waters of the Yam Suf, where this tragedy occurred. Till this day, as the sixth Betler said, I am curing her. The cure will be completed when Mashiach comes. Secondly, the second interpretation, exactly the same, in the same sense, just as true, just as actual, just as virtual, is the case of every individual neshama. Every Jewish soul is being bombarded by the Yetzer Hara, is being shot at constantly by the Yetzer Hara with his wiles, schemes to inject this poison of taivas, of evil desire and sin into the neshama. The neshama becomes weaker and weaker, filled with this poison, and this is why the Jews are too weak to rise up, to fulfill their mission properly, and to bring themselves back to the Beis HaMikdash. For this, we need the leader, the tzadik emes, who can cure our neshamas. This is the work of the tzadik emes. How does the tzadik emes go about it? He must have the knowledge of all these items aforementioned. Above all, he must have the knowledge of the 10 types of winds, the 10 types of negina, 10 types of musical notes. The Sefer Tehillim, written by David HaMelech, consisted of these special 10 kinds of negina that are mentioned in the Gemara, Ashrei, Maskin, Tzuach, Nigan, and so forth. These 10 types of negina are mentioned in the Likutei Moharan, Tanina, chapter 92. The Arizal reveals there the 10 types of negina, the source for these 10 types, and then the Arizal tells, finally, which 10 chapters of Tehillim are the Tikuney Zohar. Which 10 are? Now, here in Sichos HaRan, R Nosson goes on to tell the story behind this revelation, because this did not come about at one moment. The Torah was not told at one day with the revelation of the chapters as we see it in the Likutei Moharan. That was a long series of incidents lasting for years, until finally they were zecher to hear from Rabbi Arizal the revelation of these 10 chapters, the importance about these 10 chapters, what they accomplish, because the 10 poisons that strike the neshama are basically chilul hakloli, chilul abedis. To cure this, you have to have a tikkun hakloli, to remove the 10 poisons of these arrows. The tikkun hakloli is through these 10 chapters of Tehillim. Nosson tells now that these 10 chapters were unknown originally. Rabbi Nachman first spoke about the fact there is a tikkun hakloli. He said, this I can tell you, that this consists of 10 chapters of Tehillim. But these 10 chapters, generally, a person saying any 10 chapters in Tehillim could do a lot of good in helping to erase the sin. Could do, that's what he said at the time originally. Of course, this must have also coupled with going to the mikveh that day. Then this could help. But still, the background, the secret 10 chapters were not revealed until a much later date. There's an entire story about this which we will take up subsequently the next year. a fascinating story which deals with the vow, the promise, the Avtacha by Rabbeinu Zal through two of his main students. This story in itself is a treasure. We'll discuss it next week. We should be zecher to take these words of Rabbeinu Zal to heart with the truest, purest sense of emunah. And with this degree of emunah, we'll be zecher to see with our eyes the princess cured, the Shekhinah returned, the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash from Heda, becoming a Mashiach, Amen v'Amen.